So do you see my presentation now? Okay, so it's a real pleasure for me to come back to India this way. Originally, there was the idea to go to India this year anyway, physically, but at least now I can come there on this way. I'm very happy about this. And I'm also happy to tell you about my program I'm working on just now. It was already said a lot about me. I'm working for this Lower Saxony 3N Competence Center, and I'm a lecturer at the University of Applied Sciences in Hanover right now. And most importantly, I think, was that I had the pleasure to live in India for 1.5 years. From June 2007 till December 2008, I was staying at Dehradun. And I had also the possibility to travel around in India a little bit. I will show you some pictures which I made at this time about agroforestry systems. So the program I'm working at is an European Union funded program. Interreg North Sea region is the kind of project. And on this map, you can see the different participants in this program. There are 2 Belgian, 2 Dutch, and 2 German organizations involved, and a Norwegian as well. So these are the names of the institutes. These are all institutes dealing somehow with agriculture. At the beginning of my presentation, I will tell you something more about our project, what we are doing, and what is the background of this. Then I will tell you something about agroforestry. That's my special topic, which I also brought into this program, which was originally not in mind of the developers. I show you some examples of agroforestry systems, and quite important I learned now is number 4, how to fund tree planting. Because as I heard just now, this event is also focusing on developing skills for the business, to develop entrepreneurship skills. And so I think my information might be very interesting for people who are looking for possibilities to earn money in that field. At the end, just a very short remark on biochar, and then I will give a summary on my presentation. So, carbon farming. The project is running already since 1.5 years. You have seen. It's about climate. Basically, it's meant as a climate change mitigation activity. That means the main aim is to increase the soil organic carbon content of the agricultural lands, but it's on the same time it's a climate change adaptation measure, as I will explain to you soon. What we are doing is basically an inventory of the techniques to enhance soil carbon and other carbon stores on agricultural land, and to disseminate these methods, especially by finding or by developing business cases. So that means, how can a farmer earn money by increasing his soil organic carbon content? There are already some things working in Germany and other countries, but we want to make these cases more known to the farmers and to convince them that this might be an option for them too. In our European group, we used to meet 2 times a year at each of the participants' places. This picture here you can see is from the second meeting at the other German participant, which is the Institute for Organic Farming in northern Germany. And there on the right side, you see a picture from the third meeting in Belgium. on that meeting, we not only discuss, but also we look around, and here you can see the first example of agriculture, because here this is a trial of alley cropping, which looks like this. That means there are stripes of short rotation, fast growing poplars in the agricultural fields. This is, let's say, the recently most discussed way of agroforestry in Germany so far, but it's maybe not the best one. Especially, it's always a problem of economics, but of convincing farmers to do it. So these kind of alley cropping systems are especially being researched on in Eastern Germany, where it's extremely dry. But I come to this later. So on the right hand, you see our meeting, and on this picture, you can see an Indian who was working at the Belgian, at the Netherlands colleagues at this time, but he only joined the project for some months and then he left again. I don't know why, but he was a very nice colleague whom I got to know at this event and who wrote part of our publications. Just a first idea of what Indian students can do later after finishing studies. So they can go to Europe, of course. And this Alekhendu Patnaik, he did a master's in Netherlands on organic agriculture after doing his bachelor's in Delhi. And now he is self-employed and kind of a consultant for organic farming in Netherlands. So the problems we are facing in Europe right now, you can really see here. This is a very big field in Netherlands, and there they told us about wind erosion problems. And anyway, everywhere in Europe we have problems that pesticides are not working anymore because either they are banned or the insects or fungi become resistant against these pesticides. So these are some of the problems we are facing. It's a very intensive agriculture, of course. This is, as I told you, in the Netherlands. In Germany, we have sometimes pictures like this. This is a picture from just 4 kilometers from my home. Last summer, the last 2 summers were extremely dry in Central Europe. So such kind of a drought we never had before, especially not 2 times after another. So it's a real sign of climate change we are facing. And even the forests now are severely damaged. Here you can see I think I took the picture in August, and this many trees already became brownish and yellow because of the drought. So the drought this year, luckily, it's more or less a summer we had in former times always with some rain in between, but the last 2 summers they were very dry, and the groundwater table still is on an extremely low level in Germany now. So the intensive agriculture not only causes these problems of resistance, but also species extinction, of course. So the number of insects decreased very much in Germany, and the intensive agriculture also causes problems for the water supply. That means especially the many cows and pigs we are growing here, they're producing so much of mist, so which is also the intensive fertilization of the landscape leads to a high level of nitrogen in groundwater. So due to these problems, which will affect our drinking water supply, at least the costs to prepare it, they are all reasons for changes in the agricultural policy these days. So we know about the problems and we have to change our subsidy system. I don't know how it works in India, but in European Union, farmers get subsidies from the European Union just for the ground, so per hectare, but in addition for some special services they are offering for nature protection, and this subsidy system urgently has to be changed in a way, not so much payment for just the land, but for the ecological services. Without these subsidies, European agriculture would not be competitive against other countries' productions. So grain and so on can be produced, and sugar, for example, you can produce it much cheaper with sugar. Sugar you can produce much cheaper in India than we are doing it here. But the subsidies are a protection for our farmers. So now I have a short video which was produced in our project. I hope it will work and it will be understandable. So sorry, I made a mistake. So I think it was quite a motivating movie. As I told you, it was made within our projects, and I just want to repeat the basic messages we are having. So first one is that soil organic matter basically is created by the plants themselves. It can be added by compost or something, but the main way to get carbon into the earth is plants, and especially mixed crops and mixed crops. Different kind of roots should be there to improve this way of storing carbon. Humus is created by these plants in form of dead roots and the fungi who are decomposing it and microorganisms. So this is the natural way of improving soil. In agriculture, this can be supported by no-till practices. We are not sure about no-till. There are, of course, some arguments for no-till practice, but sometimes it seems to be better to till, but at least one basic aspect is never to have the soil open or bare. So on the right picture, you see a bare soil. This should basically not happen. You should always have some cover crops or compost or some mulch or whatever. Never leave the soil bare, exposed to sun and rain, because this always reduces the carbon content and disturbs the soil life. So these are some basic aspects which are not followed even in our agriculture everywhere, but some people are doing it since many years, and especially in ecological agriculture, it's being done to keep the soil covered, and it's also funded by the EU funding to have some cover crops at least. So in addition to this measures, you can also add trees to the agricultural landscape, which of course store additional carbon and also protect the soils, especially in case of wind. In some areas in Europe, like Ukraine, for example, where you have dry periods and strong winds, it's very helpful for the agricultural production to have shelter belts. And even here, where I'm living in this northern Germany, it makes sense to have shelter belts for wind, because this must not always reduce the production due to the loss of area where the trees are standing. You can't grow corn, or you can't grow other fruits. So this is a loss, but the productivity of these agricultural products may become enhanced due to the shelter belts, because problems of drought are reduced by less evaporation in case of less wind, and also by in the night when there is less wind, also the moisture from the air will better get back to the soil if there is less wind by these shelter belts. And another important field of improvement is the management of grassland and pastures. Generally, grassland is storing a lot of carbon, even sometimes more than forests, I learned in the meantime. And the right way of grazing can improve this situation. As mentioned in this short film, the advantages of humus-rich soils are better nutrient supply, and especially better access to micronutrients, which often are not part of the fertilization. So zinc and other micronutrients are only be supplied by fungi and similar microorganisms in the soil if they are there. So this is a good argument. And also I learned last year that the supply of these microorganisms itself can improve the plant health by the way that, for example, the upper layer of the leaves, for example, become more resistant against fungi attacks if these micronutrients are available due to the better soil life. and therefore then you need less chemicals to prevent fungi infections. So all is somehow linked, and as a basic idea, you should keep in mind that the better the natural soil life is developed, the better the plant health will be. And another important point I used to stress to our farmers is the possibility for rainwater to go down to the earth is improved if the soil health and the humus content is better. So what you see on the right picture, that water does not infiltrate the soil, is less, and it goes better in, and it will be stored more water for the dry periods. So this is also a very good advantage for the new situations under climate change, where we even facing droughts here now. So there are so many good arguments to improve the humus content of the soil and the soil life itself, especially to mitigate these new problems of climate change. So even if we could not really prevent climate change anymore, which what I am thinking already, at least the problems caused by climate change can be reduced by all these measures. So there's another initiative I just want to mention, which is going to the same direction. It was a worldwide idea to increase carbon storage in soils all over the world by 4 per 1,000 per year. People from France had this idea, and explaining that global soils already now are containing 2 to 3 times more carbon than the atmosphere. So if this storage could be enhanced accordingly, means 0.4% per year, then all the excess CO2 which now is being added to the atmosphere store could be removed from the atmosphere. And all these advantages we just mentioned, like resistance to soil erosion, water retention, and so on, will be achieved. So this is an initiative on which our project somehow is also based. Here's a description of this initiative again, showing the pool, these 1,500 billion tons of carbon stored in the soil, as compared to 4.3 billion tons going to the atmosphere every year. So this is less than 4 per 1,000. If it would be possible to move this down to the earth, then we would not have an increase of CO2 anymore in the atmosphere. And how it works, we just saw by getting plants to take this carbon up. Here are the methods they have listed. Means never leave bare soil, as I just mentioned. It's also a question of productivity. I mean, a bare soil does not produce anything. So it's always better to use the soil all over the year, which is much easier in India, of course, except the dry periods. I mean, here in winter, we have plants are not growing, but due to warmer situations, even in winter, it's growing somehow here. And in India, you have not the problem of cold, but of drought, of course. Then you can introduce intermediate crops. That means between the 2 harvests. This is not a question for you, but because you can produce all over the year except dry periods. Intercropping means mix some different kinds of agricultural plants. Then here, this is agroforestry, add hedges to the field and field boundaries and so on. I will show you later. Optimize pasture management, as I just mentioned. It depends on how the cattle will graze there. This has a strong influence to the carbon storage of the soil. Restore land in poor condition. That's an important point for India. And improve water and fertilizers management, use organic fertilizers and so on. So as I mentioned, these 2 points are relevant for me now, means for agroforestry